Hey everyone, welcome to a TopSoil webinar and live recording of the TopSoil podcast. Mitchell Hora here with you, joined by some esteemed guests here today, esteemed award winners. And we've done the Dirty Glove Awards for the last couple years. Just kind of a fun thing, right? Instead of having the golden gloves, we got the dirty gloves. It's supposed to be funny, but and just really a way for us to try to highlight good things that are happening, right? And there's always so much negativity being highlighted in the world, and we want to highlight positivity. That's what this is about. Sharing the conversation here, trying to encourage other farmers, encourage other stakeholders, and just have some fun conversations. So excited to chat with these guys, and continue on the conversation from here. So we'll take questions. I've of course got plenty of them, and I think just this panel that we've got, it'll be fun to kind of have conversations and have farmer talk here back and forth for a little while. To kind of tee things up, Continuum Ag, we've been doing a lot on carbon intensity here recently, and really we've emerged into being a software company, but our core mission is still the same, and that's to help 1 million farms improve their profitability via improving their soil health. We still do a lot with soil health, the Haney soil health test. That's my background in this space, and I love that tool. And we still use it tremendously on our farm. And we have a department here at Continuum Ag that brings that Haney test to the farmers at scale. But carbon intensity and the 45Z credit and some of these things, it's so much, it's a better carrot to bring more family farms to the table and get more. It's a way to drive increased profitability for those farmers that are driving improvements to their soil health. And I believe it's going to enable the flywheel to spin faster. So, on our panel here today, we've got our Dirty Glove Award winners that are going to share their thoughts and perspectives on different parts of this. We can just talk shop, talk farming. We've already been kind of doing that before we hit go and hit record here. And anybody that's on there that's watching this live, be sure to jump in and ask your questions. Or if you're watching this after the fact, shoot me questions if you want. I can get you as many answers as we can. So let me set the stage of who we've got, and then I'll go kind of one by one and letting each of you guys say hi and introduce yourselves and whatnot. So and I'll introduce all four of you first here, and then I'll circle back. So, Rick Clark was our best soil health score winner. Rick farms over in Indiana. Rick's been on the show plenty of times. I've been on his show plenty of times. It'd be great to catch up, especially that he's enjoying the nice weather down in Arizona.
Yeah.
I'm very jealous of that. We're cold here in Iowa today. But Rick, I'll circle back and have you talk about, about your soil health journey, and obviously for a lot of people that know you on this, seeing Rick Clark as the winner for the best soil health score, not a surprising thing. Also not surprising that Josh Nelson, best CO2 burst. Josh farms up in northern Iowa, um, really pushing on the biological side of things, and exciting to see that pay off, right? Where in soil health, we always talk, well, it takes so long to improve soil health, or like it's hard to measure it. Well, we're proving that you can, and you can move the needle quickly. So excited to talk to Josh about that. Jaiden, and his colleague Steve have been on the show multiple times. Jaiden was with Farmers Choice. They're up in North Dakota. They've been scoring their farmers carbon intensity like crazy. So they won our award for the most bushels scored. Continuum has a dealer network of 50 some dealers across the country. But Farmer's Choice up there in North Dakota won the award this year for having the most bushels scored. And the best CI score is JD Hollingsworth here from Southeast Iowa. So great to have at least one of our things pulled back here, which is great. But showing that we can really lower these CI scores. Sometimes we get some CI scores that are out of whack and we know that they are not super accurate. This is one that's like, all right, this actually is legit, a real CI score, and very low. So excited to hear how he did that. But without further ado, let's turn things to Rick here first. And Rick, your Haney soil score here, 37.5.
Wow.
I think Haney says that a good score is anything better like a 7 or an 8. Now, usually I'm looking for scores that are 20,
Yeah.
25. It's like really good. A 37 is just incredible, you know. So let me stop sharing here so we can see you better, Rick. Rick, thanks for taking the time here today. But talk about,
Yeah.
let me turn things over to you. You fire away.
Yeah. The first thing I want to say, Mitchell, is thank you. Thanks for doing this. It brings awareness to the world of what soil health can really be. And you got some great folks here. And I, I want to also say this is one of the more proud awards that I've given because this tells what's really going on the farm.
Yeah,
And to do what we've been able to do, Mitchell, which I'm going to tell you, this is hard to farm like the way we're farming, but to get uh, soil health scores like that, that's just mind blowing.
it's awesome. Too bad there's not a big cash prize with any of
Well,
these
I
awards here,
thought,
though,
oh,
guys.
wait a minute, I
Sorry.
thought there was.
There's no cash prizes. It's just, hey, you're gonna spend an hour with Mitch talking about soil health and hang out on the
Well,
webinar
hey,
here.
the cash prize is what we get at the end of the day when you get all this soil health going and
That's right.
you can reduce inputs
That's right.
and we're saving the planet and building soil health. And the other thing too, Mitchell, that I really like about this is we're building human health.
That's
And
right.
we don't talk about that enough. So
That's right.
it's great.
Rick, most of the people on here, I'm sure, know who you are, but there's probably some that don't. Explain a
Yeah.
little bit about your
Yeah.
operation and how you came to having a 34, 37 Haney score when 25 is like incredible and you're
Yeah.
in the mid 30s. How do you do that? Talk about your operation a little bit.
Yeah, I'm a fifth generation farmer, West Central Indiana. We've been on this regenerative journey for about 17 years now, and we've taken it all the way, not all the way, but we've taken it a long way into um, what I call the regenerative organic now. So the farm is certified organic. 11, it's been 11 years now that we've reduced, or I mean, I'm sorry, eliminated inputs. So we no longer put on any synthetic NP or K. We do some biology, not a lot, but we do some. And I think Mitchell, it's just the sheer fact of reducing tillage, which we've been no till for a long time.
Yep.
And maybe we can circle back when everybody's done. I want to talk a little bit about tillage, but
Yep.
um, I think when you take into the account of being no till and no chemistry and no inputs for so long, we have a microbial biome that is in absolutely hyperdrive.
Yep.
And it is showing with your test. I mean, this is the second year we've won this. How many times you done this thing? 3 years?
Yeah, 3 or 4 years, and yeah, and these we renew it every year, right? So
Yeah,
it's every year we relook at who did we sample this year, and yeah, to be able to show that it's consistently there now, it's
yeah,
like that's
yeah.
it's
And
working, right? It's really
and
working.
and and this is a great way to baseline your farm. You need the Haney soil health test, baseline your farm, get the data, and then start moving forward so you can see if what you're doing is working or not. And I'm not going to say that I've done anything magical here. This we've just stepped back and let Mother Nature just go and
What
take over.
what I love is the Haney test gets plenty of crap and gets pushback, right? But it works,
It
and we're
works.
showing it here. And when we go to Josh, it works, and it aligns with those soil health principles, right? And that you've
Yeah,
been implementing on your farm, reducing disturbance, and you've reduced it chemically and
yeah,
physically. Most people just think about physical disturbance, but yours
right.
no disturbance chemically or physically, maintaining living roots all the time, right? With cover crops, the
Yeah,
diversity out there, maintaining soil armor with all the residue with the cover crops, integrating livestock. You've got all the boxes checked for the context of your farm.
yeah,
But your added principle of commitment,
yep,
right? To your 11 years committed full bore at this, and the results are there.
yeah,
And obviously you to your point, it boils back to the dollars and the human health. The dollars, the financial
yeah.
health, the human health. That's
That's
it,
right.
you doing that. It's not just there's a number and a score that we can measure and put on it, but it's actually returning real.
Yeah, it's real. This is real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great, and like I said, I mean, this is one of those awards that I'm really honored to get again because this really shows what you can do. This is not subjective to anybody's opinion.
Yep.
This is just sheer factual information.
Yep. Yep. It's actually working out. And to your point, a great tool for farmers to utilize who want to garner better insights about their operation,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
see where you're at, no matter where you're at on the journey. So that's awesome, Rick. Well done.
Thank you.
Let's turn it over to Josh. Here's a piece of the Haney test. And what I love about the Haney test is it quantifies nutrients in the soil, plus it quantifies biology. And it does that through a CO2 burst. And at the lab, they take some of the soil that's dried, they measure it out and put it in basically a mason jar. They add some water into it, they incubate it or wait for 24 hours, and then they see how much CO2 came out of that soil in 24 hours. Usually, a good healthy soil has a CO2 burst around 100, 150. I like to see healthy soils get into that 250, 350 kind of range. Well, Josh has a score over 500. This is not the highest ever, Josh. I have seen over 1,000 before, but 500 is humming and really rocking and rolling. Josh, let me turn things over to you. Talk about your operation and how the heck did you get your soil biology basically more than double a healthy, good functioning soil?
Yeah, yeah, I'm in north central Iowa. I'd say an hour from Albert Lee, Minnesota, and an hour from Ames. Kind of in the heart of the prairie pothole region here. So it's flat and black, but the issue we face a lot of times is that our soils get anaerobic because they just don't have gas exchange.
Mm.
Um, Quite often, that's because we have guys out here making 7, 8, 9, 10 passes of tillage in a year, because if it's not powder and blowing, it must not grow anything. But on this farm, it's kind of become my new model for a lot of stuff. Working with you guys, Carolyn, and everybody else there at Continuum. This field has a 3 crop rotation on it, so it goes corn, soybeans, and then cereal rye. What that I harvest as a cover crop seed. And after the cereal rye is off, then I plant a diverse mix. I think this mix was 12 different species. Um, and then I strip till it in the fall. And so I didn't put any synthetic fertilizer down. Um, at the time, um, I when you guys took those samples, I think we were in the middle of a pretty wet period. We went from a drought to getting about 30 or about 2/3 of our annual precipitation in the month of May.
Yeah.
And so at one point there was a river flowing through that field that y'all sampled up there. But I think it shows the resilience of the biology because while I do have field tile, that field did suffer. But at the end of the year, it was probably one of our best fields. Most of the guys around here were getting 150, 160 bushel corn because everything ran out of gas. All my nutrient application was in season, along with taking biomass samples and doing all the things that, Rick and other people are doing on their farms. So I think it shows the resilience. Similarly, I've got another field about 10 miles to the south that was relay crop this year is rye and soybeans, on the lightest farm that I have. So it was going through this drought, it was going through everything else. By the book, it should have been an abject disaster, but it was 60 bushel beans and 30 bushel rye.
That's it.
So it demonstrates the ability of soils from across not just one type, but a diversity of soils to sustain a lot and to be resilient and recover and actually yield.
And Josh, let me make sure I'm getting this right. So it's obviously a theme back to the soil health principles again, right? Minimizing disturbance. Down in your neck of the woods, it's Des Moines lobe, heavy, flat, black soils, right? Where
Right.
conventional tillage is pretty much everybody. But you're doing strip till, right, to minimize the disturbance. No fall applications of nutrients. You were talking about just split applying in the spring. So minimizing or optimizing nutrient application there, diverse cover crops, diverse crop rotation, of course, maintaining cover crops. And then on this, so all those things, of course, leading to, hey, it works and we're getting the biological and soil health response. And of course, the yield that you said, that's how we're actually paying for this stuff at the end of the day. Having a great soil health score, a great CO2 burst, that's awesome. But it's when it equates into dollars in your pocket at the end of the day. That's, of course, why this matters. The data is just an indicator to help us
Hmm.
move in the right direction. And ultimately, it's got to make money, it's got to be profitable. And so, am I tracking that right? And then you've been playing with
Correct.
a lot of different biological products and stuff as well, right? And humics and
Yeah.
things. Did any of that factor in on this, or not necessarily?
Um, the so I put a when I planted this year, I put a blend down of humic acid and kelp and yucca extracts, and I I put those out the back of the planter along with some nitrogen and boron, and I do believe that that probably helped with stress mitigation for a lot of my corn. Mind you, that the other fields that haven't been in the system nearly as long had half the yield that I got on this one field, but they also got, you know, the nearest field to this one got I finished planting it. It was the last field I planted on May 20th, and then we got 8.5 inches of rain that week. So
Yeah.
I wanted to replant that field, but it wasn't dry until the last week of July. So I wasn't about to go stick my planter in the mud. Uh, but that said, it did help on the fields that had a chance to recover. And I did this on my beans, I did it on my corn, I did it on my rye. The fields that had an opportunity to recover from the rains showed that stress mitigation, it showed the resilience, and it showed that I didn't need a whole crap ton of fungicide
Yeah.
or anything else, because the plants were healthy enough to handle the stuff that was getting thrown at them and then recover. Um, and so I do
So,
credit a lot of that.
so is it more so though it's the soil health principles that were leading to the soil biological response that we saw the CO2 burst from the Heaney test, and then some of the products that you're applying and some of the specialty stuff that you're utilizing, that was more on the crop health side, and the combo is then what created the awesome yield and
Yeah,
positive.
it's the above and below ground interaction. So
Okay.
I don't think that I would have gotten off to, like, going back to these fields. I've had every single one of my fields Haney tested
Yeah.
multiple times,
Yeah.
and not all of them, the ones that have been in a soil health system longer, have better CO2. They've got better, max
Sure.
percentages. They've got
Makes
better carbon
sense, right?
cycling and
Once
nutrient
again,
cycling.
the test actually works and actually shows
Yeah,
what we expect. Imagine that, right?
yeah, and it shows that it's not a growing medium where you got to maintain certain base saturation levels or everything's going to fall apart. Based on your test and based on tissue analysis that I did, I had fields that I applied potassium to, and then I have this field where I had no applied potassium for 4 years, and the levels on this field were at equal to or above the fields that I've been putting 150 pounds of potash on. So it
Yeah.
just goes to show that this idea that if we don't do something to help this crop, everything's going to die is a little bit of a misplaced idea. We have to do something. We're farmers. It's not like we're just going to go out there and seed and then golf the rest of the summer. We actually have to work, but it doesn't need to be this extreme anxiety experience where we think every time the weather changes, uh, we're gonna go broke and have to find a new job.
That's awesome. You can go golf during the winter time down in Arizona like Rick's doing here. No, Josh, that's awesome. And just again, a testament that, hey, this actually is making sense and giving us some indication of, all right, are we moving in the right direction? Are we not? And of course, as we get more biology to function, we can cut back on our inputs. Now, the Haney test obviously is, what we've been talking about there, but now there's a new scoreboard that we've been talking about a lot here at Continuum, and it says carbon intensity score, which basically takes here's all your farming practices and here's the thing that you're doing on your operation, and put a new score on it, and that's this carbon intensity score. And Jaiden, we connected, shoot, it's been more than a year ago, a year and a half ago, probably. And you guys really took this bull by the horns and saw, the ability to go and help farmers to understand this score, get this put together. Obviously, you're in North Dakota, central North Dakota, northern North Dakota. There is not a huge adoption of all of these soil health practices. They are in a different context up there, but so maybe speak to that a little bit, but also speak to just, what's been the response and what have you guys seen as farmers looking to put a carbon intensity score on their farming practices?
Yeah, I guess I'd like to say, I speak for Farmers Choice and myself. That it's great to be part of this, and really, this group, resonates kind of what Farmers Choice has been doing up here. We're kind of the outliers in the area, moving towards more of the nitrogen or nutrient efficiency. There is a lot of minimal till or no till practices here in the central part of the state. If you get to the eastern part of the state, there's a little bit more tillage, maybe a little bit more yield over there. But we have quite the opportunity over in this, geography with our Blue Flint plant. Harvestone is kind of one of the ones that can really move forward with all of this. So it aligns really well with Farmers Choice. It also aligns very well with our book of business, being able to do these practices, humics, fulvics, doing the biologicals and things like that. It just lines up very well. We are very diverse in North Dakota, with crops. So moving the peg for corn really is a good thing around here, making us be a little bit less diverse. I understand that, but making better farm decisions, to drive kind of an ROI more for the farm on the corn side.
On the corn side, yeah, because they're thinking about a lot of different crops. So it's how do we maximize that corn year? Yeah, you guys I think are in a really unique spot here, right? And obviously identified that. You went full bore on this, that Farmers Choice, independent ag retail, independent agronomy, serving farmers, throughout the area, but you're in a hot spot for 45Z and producing low carbon biofuel. And for context for everyone, up there in Jaiden and Farmers Choice's backyard, basically, is where they can do this CO2 sequestration. So we talk about like the carbon pipelines and that kind of thing, taking CO2 from the ethanol plants, basically bottling it up, compressing it to a liquid, and then pump it up to North Dakota. Well, obviously the pipeline stuff is in a funky spot right now, and even more funky from some of the headlines I saw recently. But where Jaiden and these guys are located is the ethanol plants are in a position where they don't have to get permission they don't have to try to play this political game as much. They can just pump the carbon straight down. And there's multiple ethanol plants up there that are already doing that, have been doing it for a while. So therefore, the ethanol plant already has a very low CI score. They already know that they're going to be able to participate in 45Z or fall back to 45Q if they have to. So they're really gung ho because they have much more certainty that they're going to be able to capitalize. And obviously, we're translating that to the farmer. And the plants are saying that they want to work with the farmers. They know that it's carbon capture and utilizing low CI crops. And Jaiden, I mean, you've talked with as many farmers as anything on this. I mean, and scoring a lot of farmers. What do you think is kind of the thought and their current headspace around this from the farmer view?
Well, I guess there's kind of push and pull on both sides of it. A lot of guys, that obviously are looking for different avenues to make money on the farm, especially with low commodity prices. I have run into instances where guys really don't want to hear it. They think I'm Greta Thunberg out there trying to tell them to, we're the problem, which we're not. But then there's also guys that are like, yeah, I mean, if I'm moving the needle on stuff that I'm already doing, like I said, Farmers Choice's current book of business, this is kind of the direction we're going anyways. So, hey, you're going to do this on your farm. Let's get you a value for it as well. I think there's a good opportunity for the farm here in North Dakota to make a
To
profit.
your point, it ties in with what Farmers Choice as an ag retail and agronomy hub is trying to do anyway, right? Help
Yep.
farmers improve profitability, improve yield, make better decisions. And now it's, hey, we can put a number on that that might be able to drive an additional premium to reward you for what you're doing. I think it makes a tremendous amount of sense. And I talk about it as a new scoreboard for agriculture, right? The
Yeah.
scoreboard has always only been yield, and we only get paid based on the yield. And even in the soil health side, it's we're improving soil health to hopefully be able to lessen our cost of getting that yield, but still we get paid based on the yield.
Yeah.
The
Yep.
revenue side is driven by the yield. And if you want to get more revenue for your yield, you got to go historically, you got to go like what Rick has done and put an organic label on it, and you get a premium that way. Put a non-GMO label on it. Those things take an additional jump. I think
Yep.
Rick will be the first to say a lot of work and a lot of paperwork and a lot of patience and a lot of headache. But now it's getting rewarded for what guys are already doing, and that's why
Yeah.
turn things to JD here, and then we'll get some open conversation and definitely want to take questions too. Starting to see stuff coming in. Definitely hammer away on that, but so taking things now to the actual farmer level, and JD, you're obviously wearing a couple different hats here. I want you to be able to speak to, but you were really showing that that we can make these CI scores incredibly low, and we do see that this score of a negative 23 is legit, and we see a lot of scores in the negative teens, negative 20s. And so we know this one it's not an outlier. It's not way out of line. We do see once in a while where we get outliers that are like negative 60 and stuff like that, which we throw those out. We know that those are not legit. But negative 23, I mean, that is humming and it's checking all the boxes, right? And JD wants you to speak to how'd you do this, but it's on the GREET model, which is where this score comes from. So this is from the 2023 GREET FDCIC, or the GREET feedstock calculator. This There is a new USDA FDCIC that they made up, but this is with the actual GREET feedstock calculator. The big drivers lowering your score: no-till, cover crops, manure, good yields, and we're checking all the boxes here, and hence an incredible score. But JD, let me turn things over to you. Thanks for hanging out with us here today, and maybe explain a little bit more about the hats that you're wearing in your operation and your take on this whole CI thing.
Yeah. Thanks to Continuum Ag for having me on today. And my soil health journey kind of started years ago when I was tired of bouncing across reels in the fields and stuff. And my dad was riding with me in the combine. He said, "I will just stop getting these big rains and we'll be fine." And then 2013, I started doing no-till and cover crops. I saw the slate test. Some of those demonstrations really showed me what we're doing to our soil. With tillage, trying to solve problems, we were actually causing a lot of the problems. And so, I never dreamed I'd get my dad on board, but after 1 year of doing no-till and cover crops on my farm, then he started seeing the benefits, and now he's telling people, "Hey, yeah, these are the things that we need to be doing." And so, I think for me, one of the big things, in the soil health journey is sometimes we get complacent and we say, "Okay, well, we're doing no-till and cover crops now, so we're good. We could just we've achieved, the goal of healthy soil." But I think, there's always things that we can do, always the next step. And so that's what Continuum Ag has been able to help me take a look and say, okay, here's where we're at. If we start adopting some of these other practices, if we start eliminating some of these inputs, then we can start to lower that CI score even further. And so, I also work for the NRCS. I'm a soil health specialist. And so being able to go out and work with producers and help them see, okay, I've got some of the answers, but then, Continuum Ag is there to help further that knowledge and help them understand where some of the profitability can come from, I guess, because, a lot of times, we look at the soil health and we can start cutting back some of our inputs. But, for one example that I have a couple years ago, we're starting to see the biology become so active in our soils that now if we don't let the cover crops grow taller, they're disappearing.
Mhm.
The biology is consuming everything out there. So if we terminate before we plant, uh, there's nothing left a couple weeks after planting. It looks like we tilled.
Yeah.
So then we start letting those crops go, the cover crop grow taller. Beans, we've been planting green for several years, but corn, then we're like, okay, now's the next step. That's what we've got to start planting our corn green. And we had the first year that we decided to do it, we had a disaster. It didn't rain for a month and a half after we planted, and we had 3 foot tall corn and 6 inch tall corn right side by side. It looked ugly. I was like, nobody's going to want to do what we're doing after seeing this. Those soils, the resiliency that we built into those soils, by the end of the year, we were still one of the top 5 yields that we'd ever had on our farm, even through that disaster. And that shows me the resiliency that we can build up in that soil health.
That's awesome. And so, and guys, I think all of this, is shining back through exactly why I've been doing all this stuff, right, for the last, well, I've been running Continuum Ag for 10 years, but now with the CI stuff and the soil health and all that and how that comes together, I think hits on it right. And I want to highlight it again that our mission at Continuum Ag is to help family farms improve profitability via improving their soil health. And obviously, all you guys have just spoke to your own stories and how you're seeing that. And Jaiden, you didn't really talk about your farm, but you're farming as well, and you're doing these practices on your own farm as well. And so all of us here seeing these things happen on our own farms, and it's okay. The Haney test is great and giving us some good results. We can manage agronomics and go on top of JD. You mentioned the Slake test. That's the one where you have the kind of cylinder of water and you put a clump of soil in the top of it, and then the one that's tilled, it typically all falls apart. The soil that has good aggregate stability, a good soil structure to it, it holds together. Just for people to hopefully you've all seen some of that. But this really shows, that the carbon intensity score and some of these programs are what's going to get more people moving the needle further, get people on the soil health journey. The flywheel starts to spin where, JD, to your point, the biology is just eating things up like crazy. You have to push things further or else you're going to have bare fields. I'm seeing the same thing. I know that Josh and Rick for sure seeing the same thing. I'm assuming up in Jaiden's neck of the woods, they're far enough north that their biology is shut down for longer. It wouldn't be as big of a thing there, but eventually it still does occur. And especially in where you got more diverse rotations, you start this flywheel spinning and more people come to the table, and it's just going to drive the soil health journey further. And we were talking before here. Now I was just in DC here this week. I'm going to continue to be in DC a lot. And the Haney test or some of these soil health scores, I think folks in DC or consumers, policy people, they're becoming more aware of soil health, but they probably don't necessarily know what a lot of these practices are. And throwing a soil health score at them or a CO2 burst number at them, it's probably not going to mean anything. It's not going to resonate. It might be, okay, that's cool, but like, what do we do with that? And that's where I like having a carbon intensity score on it that now can directly mean something for policy and to move the needle in DC and to be able to move the needle with corporates and the top down where the money comes from to actually get more people on board of this. And that CI score or similar to a CI score can get more people on the journey. Then we can help them out with tools like a Haney test or a Slake analysis and simple things to actually implement the practices that drive your soil health score, your CI score. So it's here's your CI today. Let's implement some tools that are going to help to lower your score. Let's test your CI score again in the future. And it just continues to enable the flywheel to spin faster, faster, faster. That's why we're doing this, and why my quote in the space is that if they do get 45Z done well, the 45Z program will do more to I believe the 45Z program will do more to drive conservation ag management adoption than the Farm Bill programs. I think Farm Bill programs obviously tremendously important. And these Title II programs tremendously important, and we need to keep fighting for them. But to get that next wave of people coming on board and not having to be reliant only on Farm Bill programs, I think 45Z has the potential to do that and get people on this journey, get them to start seeing the outcomes. And I hope that eventually we don't necessarily have to have it being taxpayer dollars that pay for this stuff at the end of the day. And I don't know, Rick, maybe that's why I toss it back to you. I mean, you're the example of exactly what I just said there, that you're doing this and you don't rely on government programs anymore, but and can just kind of open this up too for conversations amongst ourselves. Obviously, the we dug in quite a bit there, so we only have like 20 minutes left, but it was really good info. But Rick, maybe let me turn it back over to you. You've been you and I have been hanging out for a long time. You've been seeing this for a long time. Where do you know what's your take on all this here?
Yeah, I really admire what you're doing with the CI scores because you're right, Mitchell, that we have to get something in place that's going to move the masses. And we all go to these regenerative conferences, these soil health conferences. We're surrounded by a bunch of people that are on our side, and it's all it's all hooray, hooray, hurrah. But we've got to figure out how to go out and move 100 million acres into these regenerative practices and get CI scores that'll pay them money. And yes, it's not coming from the taxpayer. So I truly agree. And then also to put behind that, Mitchell, it also goes back to what your company also is very good at is teaching. So we not only need that CI score capability, but we need teachers to teach the farmers how to acquire those higher CI scores.
I think that's spot on. And JD, let me toss that to you because you mentioned that a little bit. And my view here is obviously we have our folks in the USDA offices that are able to help drive this message. Guys like you that practice what you preach are actually out there doing it. But gosh darn, there's a lot of people that need this message, and I think it's that collaboration. And now this just enables more people to come to the table, not just preaching to the choir,
Yeah.
like Rick talked. But JD, are you seeing some of that come through, or is that kind of how you're envisioning this happening as well?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Anybody that says, well, it's just one group can tackle this, it takes a collaborative effort. And so that's why, you've got the NRCS, Continuum Ag, any partners that we can come together and we share a shared message. I think that's where we really can move the needle.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's certain people that view an NRCS employee and they're like, oh, well, they're just, told by the government whatever to say. But yeah, being able to practice what we preach, like you said, and then working with other groups, having different people at the table to share that same message at field days and things like that.
Well, I think it gets us more of an outcome to strive for, right? Where, of course, at the end of the day, everyone's got to make money. We're running businesses here as well. But if an outcome is beyond just can we produce low cost commodities that then can go into a supply chain to just produce low cost food or low cost fuel, whatever, that's fine. But now we can actually do it in a more sustainable manner, a lower carbon footprint manner, or whatever the metric of the day is. And all this stuff takes data to get the stakeholders pulled together. I'll share a quick story there. I met with Congresswoman Marionette Miller Meeks' folks on Monday. And Congresswoman Miller Meeks has been at our Topsoil Summit multiple times. She's very much a champion for the farmers in this space, loves the soil health message, loves the CI message, been fighting for it. But what I shared with her staffer that I met with was just a quick little data point here that the national average CI score is 29.1, or the default score is 29.1. Continuum has scored over 350 million bushels working with folks like Farmers Choice and the rest of our network. We've scored 350 million bushels. The average score is 11.5. That's nearly a two-thirds reduction in farmers' carbon footprint already. And when I mention a little data point like that of farmers already doing two-thirds better than what the government gives us credit for, that's a talking point that a congresswoman like Miller Meeks can say, hey, I've got these guys that are fighting. They're already working for this. They're already showing that farmers have lowered their scores, lowered their carbon footprint by two-thirds. Like those are simple talking points that resonate with a lot of different stakeholders. She doesn't need to know exactly where did that 11.5 come from, right? The rest of us here, that's for us on the agricultural side to actually help to implement and teach people how to get to a 11.5 or even lower. like on the Hollingsworth farm, or our score last year was a 2.6, or I mean, all the rest of you guys is too obviously super low scores. The individual nuances is great, but we can get some awesome higher level talking points to bring additional stakeholders to the table and hopefully drive some money for all of us as well. So so going to Jeff, and yeah, guys, fire away with questions, or are you guys here too? We can just chat here for the last 15 minutes. But Jeff, for each of you guys, now when you were looking at adopting some of these practices, what risks, agronomic or economic, were you talking about? How did those risks shine through? And maybe we just start with that. Any stories there of some of the risks that you were worried about when you were adopting practices? Did any of that materialize, or how have you thought about risk and risk mitigation here as you were looking at changing to use some of these soil health practices? Josh, you got one? Go ahead.
Yeah, I saw that question earlier. I spent a lot of time when I was really kind of getting into this. I planted my first cover crop in 2014 and was kind of on an island for myself for a long time before I even learned what regenerative ag was. And then at that point, I kind of took off running once I found people like Rick and Lauren Steinloggy and Dave Brandt. But every single one of them, preached start slow and know your context. And in my situation, that was critical because, we're northern Iowa, we're damn near Minnesota. It's cold and wet a lot of the time. We have a blizzard right now. We're expecting 13 inches. And then after that, we're supposed to go into a drought. So weather extremes. Not everything's going to work the first time, and you can't always just jump right in with both feet. You got to kind of take baby steps. And so in our situation, I tried no-till corn, and a freak thing happened where the last 3 days of May, we had a frost, and it killed half my no-till corn. And I learned my lesson there, started on strip till. Strip till has its own challenges. You got to take everything and pay extra special care. But the point of it is that you're building a resilient system. So when you go into a 2024, where similar to this year, we had biblical rains and then we had nothing. It's a lot of the other guys in this area are scratching their heads like, how did we lose money? How did things go off the rails? And I'm like, I could tell you exactly where it happened. But that's kind of my one big tip is know your context and understand how you can develop things and then manage, because it's just like everything else. You can't just put this out there and walk away.
Yeah.
Because similar to JD's point and Rick's point, the number of times that I've gotten a phone call from somebody at a commodity group and they're like, I've got this farmer and they took an NRCS cost share and now they've got 400 acres of cereal rye and they don't know what to do with it. Can you call them? And it's always some guy 20 minutes away because I'm an idiot. I'm the village idiot here. But I go to Wesley and everybody thinks I know what I'm doing. So that's my main tip is, know your context and manage.
No, I love that. And I think, what with this and probably to the point of this question, I see, if the whole point of all this, right? Why Continuum is so focused on this is if 45Z comes through the way that we want it to, that carrot to come this direction is huge, way beyond anything else that we've seen before. For example, in down in our neck of the woods, adopting cover crops lowers your CI score by like 14 points, 16 points. That's an overall 45Z value of nearly $200 an acre. And the farmer getting a portion of that 200, call it, maybe 50 or $100 or something like that. It's going to bring a lot of people to the table to start thinking about coming this direction. And to your point, Josh, if they don't know what they're doing, that 50 or $100 might go right down the drain and you might end up losing more than that. And that's where the understanding context, understanding how to do this is critically important. And yeah, Jaiden, go ahead. I mean, you guys are seeing that firsthand, and you're literally you are that guy that we're talking about, literally looking at what practices should you be doing on your own operation because of seeing these programs coming down the pipe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want us to paint ourselves in a corner here with, kind of the messaging that we're putting out on this. These are great ways to lower your CI score. But, in our area right now, there's, possibilities of no farm practice changes and still getting a value for doing something you're already doing. You're not changing practices and having to sign contracts like any other government payment. As long as like the GREET FDCIC ruling is what we go with. Hopefully everybody commented on that, trying to move that forward. And for us, our local ethanol plant has a big draw, but it's not large enough for a lot of these expansion areas for just to stay at mass balance. So, the book and claim thing is also another thing that we really need moved forward. But yeah, those are just kind of things that I wanted to share.
Yeah.
Just because our messaging is, nutrient efficiency, there's no till and things like that. Those are just ways that you can lower your score.
Yeah.
You could already be getting a value on your farm and you don't even know it yet.
That's a really good point. And that's the 11.5 CI score, right? That we tout is the average. That's what guys are already doing. Now you could go further. Not everyone's going to do what the Hollingsworth are doing on their farm and have a negative 23. That's not realistic. Not everyone's going to go to what Rick is doing, no synthetic inputs, no till, full bore, and go all the way organic. Like it's going to be a combo blend of somewhere in between. But what I love is like, and you guys have seen right on Topsoil, we get Farmers CI score for free, and then we give you the calculator that you can see what moves the needle on your farm. And there's some things that move the needle tremendously that maybe you're going to be worth making a change. There's other things that are incremental changes. Fertilizer management stuff, Jaiden, like you're talking, there's different incremental things. Now, to your point, we need the GREET FDCIC to be utilized here because the USDA feedstock calculator for some reason doesn't factor in all those nuances. That's besides the point. But yeah, even just tweaking, fine tuning some of the stuff, and Josh, you've been doing those kind of things, right? And tweaking fertility programs and getting away from bulk synthetics. You're still doing synthetics, but you're not as reliant on them, and those things add up to a better CI score.
Yeah, I mean, the average nitrogen application in this area is still around 1 pound per bushel, and I do know guys in the area that have gotten it down to half a pound, through aggressive management and in-season timely applications. But I was just kind of thinking about what y'all were saying, and there's still a very strong mentality in this area that no till equals no yield. Strip till does not work, even though it's like, even though it's one of the big areas. The one thing that I was thinking about though is just if you don't manage things correctly, that $150 you get from your CI score could quickly be lost in yield or some other things. And so just make sure you're going slow and you understand what you're doing, because a lot of times producers will only do this one time, and if they don't have success the first time, they're never going back.
Yeah. And that's also part of making sure that if you're gonna chase a new dollar payment, we better have some stability that it's gonna be there. The rug doesn't get pulled out. And obviously, there's a lot of lack of certainty there in some of these programs. So you're gonna sign up for something, think you're going to be able to get financially compensated, then it's not there at the end of the day. And that speaks to this anonymous attendees question. What do we think new administration is going to do? In supporting these practices and stuff. And I think, I was just out there. Obviously, they haven't spoken too much about it. All I can really speak to is that, of course, we are going to keep hammering on this administration and our elected officials in Congress to protect 45Z and to understand the importance of it. A couple different pieces to note on it. Our new Secretary of Ag, Brooke Rollins, and our Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bassett, who really Scott Bassett is the guy that's overseeing Treasury, therefore the IRS, and they ultimately have the authority on 45Z as it's a tax credit. It's underneath them. But USDA has a major role to play. Both Scott Bassett and Brooke Rollins in their Senate hearings mentioned and spoke positively about 45Z. So I know that this administration is aware of it. I know that they understand that it's a good thing. They want to see it through, but hard to tell. And we're seeing it being supported right now in Congress, where in some of these continuing resolutions it did pass through. There were some conversations about some of these programs not being carried out, but folks have really stood up from both sides of the aisle and supported this thing. A couple other quick tidbits there from DC. The USDA public comment period just ended yesterday, and that's what Jaiden was alluding to, and we need to make sure our voices were heard. There is a IRS public comment period that's open until April 10th. We definitely encourage everyone to voice your opinion there as well and continue to say, hey, this is a great program and this is going to help move the needle. We have an ability to do that. Then I believe after April 10th is when this administration in Washington, they can actually now take in these public comments. They can look at what the previous administration did, and they can kind of formulate their own rules, their own thoughts on this. So I really think it's going to be April, May, June that some work is actually going to be done along these lines. I spoke at the AgriPulse conference on Monday, and I was surprisingly satisfied with the amount of optimism that I heard for 45Z. And some of these folks that are there in DC, lobbyists and these kind of groups are analysts, and they're saying, yeah, no, they see 45Z as continuing to be a thing. And folks understand how important it would be for American energy, biofuels, farmers. So there's actually there was more optimism than what I thought there was going to be. The concern is the timing that this administration, they got a lot of other things that they are working on right now. As you look at Treasury, you're talking all these tariffs and all this changes in tax code, and you got the jobs cut or Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, all these, like they've got a lot of stuff that's going to be on their plate. And that's also why we're advocating just keep it simple and utilize some of the systems that are already there and get this launched. But long story short, I do think that I think there's enough support to get 45Z out and going. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. I hope that they don't delay it and we miss a tax year. Um, there's no indication of that, that they would not get it done for this tax season or this tax year, but kind of hard to tell. But we're going to keep fighting for it. Maybe as we unfortunately already have to work to wrap. Why don't we go around any of you guys' kind of final thoughts and message to other farmers, other folks in this space, or to DC as well. Josh, why don't we're just with you. Why don't we go with you? Any kind of final thoughts and takeaway here?
Just, I think the 45Z is a great start. It's another carrot because you can de-risk all this stuff and people still won't change unless there's a reason to. But once you get in there, you start to see the things like Rick and I and JD and Jaiden have seen where it's about resilience. The initial pay is nice, but the paycheck at the end of the year is that your ROI is going to be better. So
that's right. And the long-term resilience, right? That's the actual payment here.
Yeah.
I appreciate you bringing that up. The actual reason I believe, at least that the group of us here, I know you guys well enough that we're doing this for long-term resilience of our family farms, and programs come and go, but the soil health principles stay the same. So, JD, any final thoughts?
Yeah. So again, I kind of like some of the comments about starting small when you're trying to jump into new practices, and stay focused. Keep trying it. If it doesn't work one year, it doesn't mean it's not going to work long term. Weather kind of plays an impact on that. But about 45Z, I think it's nice to finally see something that hopefully we can have some consistency in.
Yeah.
When the carbon programs kind of first started, it was like the Wild West, and people were getting paid for something, and then the next person could be doing really good soil health management practices, and then they didn't see any benefit from it. So that's one thing that I'm pleased to see. Hopefully, we're bringing some consistency to this.
I think I've heard a lot of that too, JD, in DC and in some of the stuff, right, where some of the language and some of the words that were utilized by the previous administration, obviously very different talking points than this administration. And we need to find some common ground, right, in definitions and talking points and consistency of programs that ultimately there's why I like this is it does both for talking points for both sides of the aisle. But hey, there's a lot more commonalities here that could bring us together than all the divisiveness that continues to tear us apart. And I hope that will be a result here and yeah, some consistency for ag. But Jaiden, any final thoughts? And Rick, we'll let you take us home.
Yeah, I guess just kind of adding to the sentiment, like there's nobody else that's going to care about your farm like you do. One, do your homework, kind of looking into these different practices that we can, help you move your score down, get you a better ROI on your farm. And the other thing is on these public comment periods. If we don't do it together as a group and make our voice heard and want it to be done, we can't be the ones that are complaining that it's not done or not done correctly. So yeah, just on that public comment period, just get out and make your voice heard.
Yeah, so spot on. Rick, take us home here.
Yeah, again, Mitchell, thank you for the honor of this award. I greatly appreciate it. The one thing that I really hope comes to fruition here, Mitchell, is we need to take your efforts of building the CI score, and I think it needs to become regionalized across the United States, because you're going to farm differently in New Mexico than you farm in Iowa.
Sure.
And so we need to understand and get the proper people in place in those regions. And then I've always been a firm believer that if you just get these practices started on somebody's farm who's never thought about this before or doesn't know where to begin, and just get them that first 100 acres and let them see that, yes, this is real. And then through attrition, it will just slowly consume their farm. And the next thing you know, we've got 150 million acres doing this.
Yeah.
So I just hope, Mitchell, it all gets set up properly to be slow, methodical, and set this up for success.
It's setting, I call it setting the precedent, right? That I'm bullish on this, not because of 45Z, not necessarily because of biofuels. I'm bullish on the concept of farmers
Yes.
telling their story, putting a score on it. And that's why we're advocating for the GREET feedstock calculator, because it has lots more practices. And it's why we're advocating for book and claim, because there's no biofuel produced, there's no ethanol plants in New Mexico. But if this was book and claim and this CI scores were available there, which also they currently are not, but if that was set up, even those folks could participate in this.
Sure.
Or what I love is maybe the buyers of those CI certificates doesn't need to be an ethanol plant or doesn't need to be somebody incentivized via the tax credit. Instead, it's private companies. They could buy these certificates. They can take this beyond the extent of the federal government, and they can make these programs long term, and therefore then also expand them into new crops, new regions, new practices. It's
Right.
just setting a precedent here that makes me super bullish on
Well,
this.
and Mitchell, if I could interrupt you for a second, you
Yeah.
also said something very critical there. What we're talking about here today, and what we've been talking about for years now, is not going to be accomplished in this current administration. This has got to roll to the next one,
Yeah.
and this has to stay in place.
Yep. It's focused on the commonalities, right? And to your point, Rick, you're a big one on the human health side. Obviously, that's going to continue to be a big thing that this administration is going to push as well. And I think we can show that, hey, we can get better human health, better farm profitability, better energy, lots of positives with one piece of policy. But guys, this has been awesome. Really appreciate the time. Obviously, we could continue to talk for at least another hour on this. And I'm sure we'll have get you guys back on here later, or circle things back around again. So as we wrap up, we do have another TopSoil webinar next week. I've got Jim Ram coming on. He's with Eco Engineers. They were our auditors that did the audit work on our first batch of verifying these CI certificates. We verified 29 million certificates. We're the first group to ever get this done. So we're having them come on to speak about the audit process, the data, and all that. So going to be a really, really important webinar. And if you want to get your CI score and maybe see if somebody can beat JD's score of the -23, you can go on to topsoil.ag and get that for free. And every Tuesday, we're on the CI Chit Chat as well. If you've got more questions, that's where you can come ask them. This will be recorded, put up on our YouTube page, put on the Topsoil podcast very soon. And appreciate everyone hanging out and being with here today, especially you panelists. Well done. Congratulations to you all. I wish there was a big trophy or a big cash award with it, but But of course it is, to what you guys said, it's the long-term resilience and it's profitability. It's the actual underlying reason why we're all doing this. That's the reward. So love it. Love it. So anyway, thanks everybody. And we will see you next time back here the on the Topsoil podcast.
Thanks, Mitchell.
Yep. Thank you.